Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs at Dr. Contrast Live. Hope everybody's well. And there's a little bit of fun today. I thought we just kind of changed the pattern a bit here. And just go back into fundamental thinking about how to build a certain shape or form. And so just basic sketches today, basic form studies. And the thing I want to concentrate on is for everybody to kind of take advantage of the fact that when you go through a lucid set of sketches such as this, I think it's always important to go back in and just build the forms and be very lucid with it, and be very gesturally with it, and not worry about what the outcome is in terms of being perfect, but just getting a character down and being very, as I said, expressive in putting together your sketches. So I'm going to go through a series of little things here today. Just little thumbnail sketches on these basic shapes, and there's no real product line involved here. Just looking at again, form generation, and I'll be working with a Winsor Newton fine line pen, a number 3.3 series. Just a great pen to work with. It's very stiff, but at the same time, it doesn't run out of ink. It's very fluid. A lot of fun to work with. So let's get this thing started with it. And so first thing I'm going to do is just, whenever you start a process, for example, you just start to see a shape. Just go back in and just begin to develop that surface and find its center line. And come back in and just break out of it just a bit. Then draw through it just a touch, and then come back in again, hit it. Come over the top of that again. And for example, coming back into the bottom of this thing, maybe it's coming back in and just doing a couple little things like this. And you come back in and just put a little character to it. And then again, just round it out just a touch here, and then come back in again. And just funnel through this guy, and then just pick up the whole aspect here. Maybe there's a stop-start button right there of some sort. That's got to kind of go into place. There. And again, around here, and then just a little, maybe a plug-in connection here. And again, same thing at this side here. Again, just a little, maybe it's a bristle of some sort. Just kind of come back in and just put a little bit of cutting edge on this thing and just kind of scruff it in there and let it go at that. Just a nice simple series of little thumbnail studies here, and run through it. And again, just fluid. Now, maybe it's a case of these little inserts. A bit of a texture change. And again, just to maybe qualify what the sketch is doing, just kind of notice how we just threw that very loosely there. Come back in with maybe a blender, and we'll put that aside from, we'll just turn this guy a little bit on its side and pick up a light source and just kind of generate through it and just say, okay, we're going to put a little bit of tone in this guy here, into this, run it through with a nice little simple armature there with a blender. Come back with a number 3 gray and just pick up the same kind of aspect here, just enough tone in here to just change the character. Again, let's get a little bit more beef in this guy. And there it is. Just a nice simple walkthrough, just a nice simple value study here and bringing forms together. And extremely, just again, generating a lot of lucidity, keeping it nice and generous. And again, coming back in, let's go back and just do this. Let's go back in through here. Pick up these guys. Again, notice, real simple gestures. Put back in. Just draw through it first. Come back in again, pick up the head of this guy. Let's just kind of break this up just a bit. Same thing up on top here. Maybe it's the same kind of, a little bit of a gesture change in here. Break that out of there. And come right back in and just add to this, and just gonna cut this back. Turn this around just a bit here. Create sort of a nice little pocket in here where it's got a little bit more of a bulge in it, and maybe it has more of this. Like a co-mold process of some sort, where that's maybe a rubber insert of some sort, of softer insert. A bit of detail in this guy. And again, just turn this side just a little bit. Very lucid sketches, kind of describing the form, going through this guy a little bit here. And again, a bit of shadow in this thing. Show where the offset is. And let it go with that. Maybe just add a little bit of tone to it here. Just come right through it with a little bit of pencil. Add that to it. Pick this up. Right down the line, a little bit of color change. And again, going back to this blender and doing a neat little thing about, hey, hi Demetrius, how are you? Good to see you, man. How's everything? Let's go back and we'll get this down here just a bit. Now notice I'm going to use this blender. It's going to create a little bit of color. Just very simply kind of borrow some color here and just walk through this guy. Just enough to kind of give it some guts. There it is. Again, just walk through this. Find just a bit more, a little more depth in this thing. Look at that. All of a sudden, just pick up that color. Just enough information there to kind of give a little bit of zip to it. That's kind of a fun system to work with, where you just pick up the blender, blend it with a marker, and let it go at that. Hey, by the way, Demetrius, hey, Chip, how are you, Chief? Long time no see. How are you? Good to have you on board, Chip. I'm just going through a series of what I think in terms of are really interesting, for me at any rate, to always think in terms when you build like a basic sketch. Nuclear blender, yeah, that's not too bad, whatever that might mean. But I think the most important thing today I want to really qualify on, and after going through a series of things in the past few streams, is how important it is to build a sketch and how to build a basic form, how to generate through it and kind of see through the shape itself and not get restricted by being linear and caught up and all that stuff. So let's go back in here and let's go the other way here. Just kind of blend this in. Come back in again, pick up that very long, thin axis through the center line, and I can come back and just flare out of it. And again, it's almost the same very image of this guy. Let's work through this guy, get that all set, and we'll come back and round this out just a bit here. Come back and hit it again. Now in this case, let's go back and just kind of bulge this back a bit. Let's come right down through here. Just be a little more linear with this thing down here. Come back in again. A little slot in this guy. Again, it's up on top. Now from here, just build this thing. Let's connect the dots here. Go to this and connect that to that. I'm going to blend that in just a bit more, a little rounder in through here, just a little softer. Back and let that shape come right through, and let's break this form up just a bit. And again, a couple little variations on theme there. Run that through. And again, pick up a little bit of a button switch here, maybe, something of that nature. And again, through here, just a nice little, maybe a fracture break, and that's it. And now notice how, from a very simple generation of just shape and element here, blender, and how that all comes together, and how you can begin to take this very simple into a very, again, maybe it's a nice little texture change up on top here. Again, show a little bit of a trough in this guy, how it kind of drops off just a bit. Come through it. Where that light source is, maybe a little bit of reverse light source on this side. Take this process here and just kind of drop a little bit of tone so this kind of chamfers back on itself. And again, very simple little, just changes the pace here, there and there. Again, this little half round, let me turn this around and get that radius right here. And coming back out just a touch more, add that to it. And again, just pick up some toothiness on the end. Maybe in this case, a bit of shadow. More shadow there. Maybe this is just a simple case of getting this guy with a little on-off switch, which maybe right in through here, and that's all we need. And then take that same blender process and come in here and just put a little bit of tone in this thing. Right down, and all of a sudden, very simple, quick gesture that gets the point across without a lot of force. Just a nice, easy blast and a little bit of tone into here. And if it merits it just a bit here, maybe we take this insert piece, a little bit of a color change to it, add a little bit of definition here, and that's it. I mean, that's just how simple those forms become. It's either a flashlight or a sci-fi weapon. Yeah, a flashlight could be kind of neat. I mean, that's just, it's neat, Chip, that you're going to look into this thing. Because again, when I started the whole process today, I didn't want to get into a situation where all of a sudden you begin to dictate, well, it's this or it's that. It's a certain process. I'm just looking at shape and form. And I think the one thing I really, again, sorry for being redundant, so really stress home on, of just getting into, what do you do in terms of developing an idea? Is it rigid? It should never be rigid. It should always be very fluid. So one of the things I want to concentrate on in this little basic sketch study here today is how to build a form. For example, sometimes we just take a very generic look at, let's do this. Let's go back and just get a sweeping place here. Let's take that form, blunt it off, come back in and just be very direct underneath it. Very linear, very organic to very linear. Now come back and end it. There it is. There it is. I'm back in this office a bit. Now let's come back and really bite into this thing. Add to it. Project out. And again, and through here. And the same thing up on, let's take that same design line and bring it right on through and just break this shape up. So now in this case, we have a very different set of circumstances. Now maybe this has a little bit of recess in it. It drops back just a bit, which is interesting. Now this can go, let's see, we can put a section on this thing. This guy could very easily come back in and say, okay, if I cut through maybe the center line of this guy right here, and I come back and section this thing, could be this into more of a little bit of that, and then right back to normal. Out, in, again, over the top in that recess, back to normal. Now when it gets to here, now it rolls back on itself. Here, this is kind of section through this guy, and that rolls over the top of this thing, comes into that normal surface again where that same slope line is. And again, it comes back in and picks up that same, almost there it is, and there it is, and then that comes back to almost a normal surface that does this. So that whole form begins to twist. I mean, look how that whole thing begins to generate itself in terms of very simple form study here. But again, let's put a bit of bridge in this thing. Let's just get that down, and then a connection on the end of this thing. Again. A bit of texture change in here. And since this is a bit of a recess in here, let's take this guy and say, you know what, maybe it's just a little bit more of this, a little bit touch more marker in here. Maybe it's now this thing that's a real solid point of reference here. That's a texture change. And just a little bit of a scooping through here. Over the top of that dress. I mean, look how simple that form comes together because you're not concerned about being perfect with it. You're just generating shapes. And I think that's really, to me, the most critical part of the whole, to me, the creative process. It's not trying to predict what you're trying to see, but to begin to produce what you see and produce. It literally means producing it and not getting caught up in just being so perfect with all the line weights. I mean, I see enough of that throughout the course of my career working with young people, where every line has to be so perfect. I mean, look how sloppy these lines are. I'm not really concerned about the accuracy. I'm looking at what am I seeing? What am I going to develop here? So it's making sense, gang? So let's go back into one more time here. Let's just do this. Come back and again, let's just kind of stiffen that up just a bit. That little mistake right there, interesting. Let's make that work for us. That little error right there opens up a whole new opportunity for shape and form. Remember, look at this thing. Let's do this. Let's put a bit of tone in this guy. And let's do this. Let's take that same thing, a little bit more of an accent in here to get a little bit more recess in that guy and really play that up. That's one thing. Now up on top, maybe there's just an accent stripe that comes over the top of that form. That's all it is. Look how that's interesting and how simple that becomes. Then you come back in here with this and let this be the element of surprise. This is a recess. And you're taking a very simple series of 1, 2, 3 elements and open up a whole new form generation as a result of that. And one of the nice things about this process too is you come back in and you start to marry some of the forms together by saying those begin to relate to that, which comes to that, and then you're going to bring this through here, bring that through here, and you've got a combination of just little vignette studies here that tell the story. I mean, that's how very quickly that whole thing can come together, and I really hope this is helping, guys, as you watch through this process. And somehow, yeah, that's exactly what's right. Just a few little form studies and forms come together, Chip, and you've got it. So let's just do this, move along here. It's really great to have you on board, Chip. By the way, I haven't heard from you in a while, and I was really concerned about it. Have you been busy? Just kind of consumed in certain things, or everything going okay for you? I hope that's the case. Also, Demetrius, just have a good question before we go any further here. I received your email. Did you get my response back about your question on some of those markers, the Masterclass marker series? And I do think if you're interested in looking at those guys, I'd get a couple of them and just test them out and see what you think. No problem whatsoever there at all. Hey, good deal. I'm glad you got that, Demetrius. And great to have you on board again today. And Chip as well. I mean, I haven't heard from you in a long time, and I'm glad everything's going well. See what you got here. Yeah, everything's fine. Just a mix of busy and not at my computer doing stream. Hey, very good. I'm glad you're not at the computer doing stream time. You can join me here and just have some fun with this stuff. So there's phase one. Let's keep going for a little bit here, but just again, just really fast, generic, how to build a form and how to become very romantic with it, not concerned about being perfect. So let's go back in here and just pick up a center line. Let's do this. A break line and another break line. Let's just kind of put this together. Come back in and funnel it, come back in and funnel it. Now notice, I'm using that, one of the most important things that from a teaching perspective, I've used over the years, and I don't think it's changed one iota. Oh, you're currently working. Hi, good man. So am I. It's nice, isn't it? One of the nice things over the years that I've really kind of hammered home with my students and working with workshops or classes and so forth, and Demetrius, you'll remember this very well. It's always important to work off of a center line. That gives you a guide about widths, proportion, lengths, etc. It's a real guidepost. So I'm going to use this as my center line. I'm going to come back on and generate a shape here. Come down to the base, roll into it, and come right back and pick up that same form on that side. That center line became a huge guide in getting this form to work really well for me. Now that I'm there, I'm going to come back in and cut this back a bit, and come out and shoot out of here again, and then add that perspective line. Look at that, how that whole thing dropped off just a bit. There's my radius. It drops off, comes back up the center line, comes over the top, and I've got it. Now at that shoulder, I'm going to add some volume here. I'm going to come back in through here and begin to break that down. And again, just take a little bit more form in here. Now look at that line. Just all of a sudden, it gave me a really nice slope here. That's doing this. It's now this. Let's get that structure first. It's now doing this, which gives me that. Made little mistakes. That little radius there, we're going to use that. Maybe a little bit of a grip thing here. So let's get that down, that, and now notice how that shape has been really altered. Let's put a little more crown in this thing. Look how that shape has been now up in here. Maybe it changes gears and goes very flat, but it picks up that same radius right through. But the break line is right through. The unique part about this whole process is as that guy curls out a little bit, gives you a whole new look. Now that I have that in place, I can come back in and break this at will. I'm going to take this line, step it down just a little bit, change its character, and drop it in. Now again, a little bit of shadow into this thing. There it is. Got a little bit of drop off there, a little bit of drop off in through here, and a little bit of drop off in through here. All of a sudden, I'm picking up a light source and changing the character of that form. Now, the nice thing about that is I'm going to come back in. Now that I've got that broken, I'm going to take this leftover, pick a point of reference here, and a point of reference here, bring it down into the shape, and then end it. Put a little bit of a chevron at the base of this thing. Now that chevron begins to work, I can begin to break that up again. And this, get that, to work into that, to give me a series of little fundamental things like that. I mean, that's on off. That might be some nomenclature on this side, nomenclature on that side. This might have a little bit of texture to it up on top. So all of a sudden we've got that kind of going. And all of a sudden, look at the difference in getting that form down. Now, with that little subtle shape there, look what begins to happen now. You take that same thing, light source again over here, which means you're going to get a little bit of tone change here, very subtle, into it and out of it, into it. And again, where the real drama is going to take place is here. We're going to take this form where it drops off and drop that down just a bit, drop that down, a bit more shadow in this thing, and take this form, drop it out just a bit, a little bit of shadow into that. And again, the real key here, as this thing rolls over, is to take that same shape and work into it with the following. I'll just really beef this thing up. Break that side and just get right back and really tone that in, and just we make sure that we save that last little squiggly to get these forms to work here. And there it is up on top, up and through here, and there's a little bit of an insert change there. Let's do that. And again, look how simple that is, and to reinforce what that form is doing, let's go back in again with a light source coming through here and give ourselves a couple of these little guys where they actually comes through. And let's add this. Maybe that's a little bit of a change of pace here. And last but not least, maybe this comes out and flares over the top of this, which gives me a point of reference, which flares into this. Whole new look. just simple. I mean, taking the fact of really taking a very fundamental form like that and just extrapolating it and getting into a lot of different motions with it, it's just, to me, extremely exciting. There's no restriction. You're just you're not going through, for lack of a better term, you're not guessing at it, and you're also not being spontaneous. You're on a controlled surface generation. You're controlling what you're beginning to see as a result of being extremely lucid with this stuff as you go. So let's kind of go back in through here and just generate some shapes. Go back in here again. Just drop this off. Let's get this thing and raise this off, round that off just a bit. Now notice really lucid sketches here. Take that back. Let's go back up on top here, open that up. Now notice, look at that line, look at the direction of that line, look at the direction of that line. Again, perspective plays a huge role in getting the drama down here. Now let's come back to center line. Let's just get right down the middle of that form. Let's take that out just a bit. Let's drop this in, let's drop that in. Collar to it here. Come back in again, maybe we chisel that up. It does that, it does that. It comes back into here, and it gives me this. Now the neat thing is I take this form and just drop it in and drop it back. All of a sudden, sectioning through here, a little bit fuller, just very typical. There it is. Now let's take advantage of that. What if I did this? And again, one more time, let's do this. Add a little bit of texture change here. Underneath that shoulder. And watch what happens when you begin to put that blender in action. Let's just do that up on top. A little bit of texture change there. See just a touch of it over here. Let's take that same blender and watch what happens when you begin to add just enough juice in this thing, just slide it right through. And let's go back in through here. Pick up a little bit of that same tone change. Put a little bit more of that corn through here. And that goes there. That goes there. That comes up on top. Again, just little combination sketches. And there it is. Look how simple that form study is there. But we're getting some information out of it that's really kind of essential. Let's tighten this back down a little bit more. Take that right through it. Again, nothing really specific here in terms of an object or an element, just how to build a shape and a form and to make that form come together and really have some life to it. Just changing the values and putting in some of the lines down and giving it some real expression. How do you feel about what you see? And I think that's one of the things that I really have a very, very solid commitment to when I put together these streams. I think it's really important that when we commit ourselves to seeing something, put a lot of spirit into it. Now, put some conviction behind it. And boy, what an enormous difference it makes in your sketch work and so forth. So let's go back in and we'll come back in and just add a little bit more. Let's just do this. Up. And it's a bit of a reverse slump in this thing. Let's do this. Just to get some sharp down. Let's be vertical with it. Let's come back in there and drop this down and then come right back in and just swallowtail that right back. And look at that difference. I mean, look at that again. That into that. Now it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to kind of break that form up just a bit. There it is there. And thins out and does that. And at the same time, this whole lower can come in and just kind of repeat itself and just return just enough to get that down. A little bit of a bridge or a break in the form itself. Bit of a hood over the top of that guy. More roundness in through here. This could be all texture. Put a little bit of pattern in the same, and just stop it at that. Say, okay, there's enough of that. We're going to come back in here and just a little bit of tint in this thing. That's that. A little bit of tone in this thing. And last but not least, let's pick up a little bit of section study here. Let's do this. Through, over, bulged, over, bulged, back to normal. Again, same thing through here, over the top of that form, same radius here. Let's bring that in, and again, a little bit of a crown, and then right back into another recess. Just a simple thing. Let's bring that same crown through here, and again, that same recess. Very interesting set of circumstances, and there you are. I mean, just taking some of these shapes and forms and developing with them is just and letting them kind of. I think the key thing here might be this too: let that drawing control you, guide you, as opposed to you trying to pressure. No, not this, it's not that. It has to be, has to be, has to be. These are the things that I think are extremely critical. I've always felt that, for example, when I go through the drawing process, I'll lay down a line or a shape or a surface, and I'll let that surface start to talk back to me. Now, it's going to sound strange, but it's true. I mean, I really go back in and really look at this stuff from the point of view of, well, what is it telling me? What do I develop it? What do I put into it? How much paper do I use? Notice, the other thing, let's put these side by side. Look at the one thing that's happening here. In every instance, there is more paper coming through here than there is actual surface or technique. I think that's the clue to it all. Letting the paper do the work for you. Whatever the negative space is doing, that's fine. But the positive space, whatever you fill in or begin to change gears to, I mean, that's when it really gets into processing, understanding how space operates and what shape is doing. And again, what basic form sketches do. You're basically forming something, and that's really what you're after. You're not forcing it, you're forming it. So, nonetheless, let's go back onto one more here. A little bit of an oddball. Let's get this pen back out here. A little bit of an oddball shape here. Let's do this. Come uphill, then come back downhill. Really radius this thing off. Real lazy. Come back in and pick this radius off the back of this thing. Come in here and just a little bit of this. And bring it right back into that radius and just kind of finish that off right about there. So there we are. Let's take that line through, just a simple little razor in this guy. Let's break that up just a bit. Let's add this over the top and finish that form off on it like an end cap. And then let's take that split line right through the shape and run it right into here. Let's take this negative, show the viewers a little bit of an undercut in this thing, which is doing that. Again, real simple form. Let's take this back a little further, kind of break that proportion up a little bit better. Let's take this on in, take that on in. And again, just a nice little change of pace on this guy. adding to it. I mean, look at how simple that becomes. What do you think, guys? Is this making sense for you so far? I mean, it's a lot of fun to just generate shape without a lot of minutes, kind of put a little bit of highlight through this thing and just form generation through it. And again, that same process, let's take this thing and begin to move into here. A little bit of color here. Break that shape up. A little bit of where the negative is. Let it go at that. Little form study over the top of this thing. Take that highlight right through here. And again, finish it off with that same kind of a little bit of a tone change underneath here. So we get that blender to work a little bit, kind of smooth that rough form out here. And there it is. More of that mix in between here. There it is there. Let's come back and bring in that little bit of the detail we're talking about here. And last but not least, let's marry them all together. And maybe for what it's worth, just a little bit of background in here, a little composition work. I'll often put together sketches just like this for client use. I'm going through a product review, a certain project I'm working on. I'll sometimes do some real thumbnail sketches like this and put a bit of concept in behind this thing and just kind of scatter it through with a little bit of color behind it to kind of give it a frame of reference, and we'll just kind of fill it in just a little bit, kind of put a little romance to it so it's not just a blank screen. And come back in and pick up that same drama, put that up a little bit. Just fill that in, and there we are. Nice little sequence study. There it is, just some really neat looking, just very, very interesting how it all comes together here. Just a composition thereof, and let's just put the scripture to it. Make sure I'm guilty party here. There's number 2. I mean, look at side by side how very similar those concept sketches are. Pardon me, basic form studies are, and there's not a lot of drama to them. It's just a, for lack, again, sort of be redundant, but I cannot help but get this point across today. Whenever you have an idea or you begin to see something, whether it's vehicle, product, interior space, architecture, whatever it might be, always good to build those shapes. And what's it made out of? What are we generating? What are the forms telling us to do? And I think that's really critical. What are the forms telling us to do, as opposed to what are we doing to try and force? Pardon me, the form never works. I mean, you try to force something, you know full well it becomes very rigid. It doesn't have a fluidity about it. It just takes on a whole different personality. But when you open up the communication lines, for example, in the visual process and the verbal process of thinking through it, when you open that up and allow those shapes to talk back to you, it's this, and this is soft, this is hard, this is compound, this is rigid, this is very fluid, this is very dynamic, this is very static. Those elements begin to tell you a story in which you transfer on the paper. And that's why I'm really confident and happy to put a stream on today. This is the story we're trying to tell. What is the shape? What are we generating? It's all about shading and yeah, it is. It's all about shading and shapes. Chip, you're right. What's that form telling us to do, as opposed to us trying to force it? I want it to do. I want. Well, the context I is dictatorship. We need to understand what the language of space is doing. We need to understand what it's telling us to do, then follow its lead every time it's successful. So there's 1, there's 2. Let's keep going here. Got a bit of a damp sheet back here. Let me get rid of this guy. With a clean sheet, we're on our way. So let's kind of keep moving here, and I hope this is helping here, gang. I really appreciate Chip, you and Demetrius for hanging around. I hope this has been productive. Has it so far so good? Anything you want to add to it? Things I should cover? I mean, I just want to make sure we don't miss any key points or that what you might be working on or looking into. Anybody? I'll just kind of, I'll check the screen there if you can. Hey, that's good. Hey, very good. I know you're good, Chip. It's good to have you on board, man. I really have missed seeing you, so I'm so pleased you're back on board here. All right, let's go back in here. Let's kind of just start with this. And again, back to center line, bring that on through. Let's add the other side here. Build this shape in, round this out. I'm going to take this right up, over the edge, carry on through. Adjust the center line just a bit here. Got that up there. Take that through. And then come right back in and pick up the blunt portion of this guy. And again, just again here. And again, just enough body underneath this thing to kind of give it a little bit of rigidity to it. Let's take that line and just kind of spear it just a bit. Spear it meaning put a little bit of sharp definition in there. Then allow the upper to be very crowned. So then just add this on. Let's take a little bit of reverse sweep in this thing. Very crucial setup here. Taking that little bit of texture forward and bringing that all into the play underneath here. And right off the bat, let's just kind of really put some really heat into this thing. Let's take this shape and really kind of stress what it's doing. And again, just really lucid and quick. Look how that form came together. Really interesting how not a lot of force. More definition through here. So what is that telling me? That shape right there, it's coming along here. And again, we'll just take a little bit of that blender, a little bit of softer side on the light source side, just soften it off just a bit and give it a little bit of form to it, and then let it kind of crank in there. And there it is. And let's just kind of round this out. Put a round form in here, and there it is, gang. Not a lot of force. I mean, look how simple that shape has come together. And we really roll into this beauty. Again, if you just want to put a little section in this thing, it's going to go through the actual body form is this, very elliptical or circle in perspective. And as I come into this, over the top, into that, and then right into that whole section reverse. Into that, and out, into that, and out. And again, back to normal surface. Again, just walking through these sketches, no, far from that, Chip. Not at all. I mean, it's really interesting. They're very kind of me to say so. I'm far from being a master. I'm still working at it like you guys are. This is not easy stuff, Chief, as you well know. So just there it is. I mean, again, look at the number. Let me stop there for a moment. Look at the number of things involved in just putting together a simple little gesture sketch like this. It's geometry, it's section, it's scale, it's tone, it's light. I mean, there's a lot of forces involved in this whole process of working with this stuff. And I think that's the thing that we have to really be careful of, that to not rush or push too far, because if we're not conscious of these things, we can get lost in a hurry. I know from my point of view, whenever I lay down a drawing, for example, let's do this. If I lay down a sketch and do this, if I'm going to start with a circular form there, I come out of that with a certain gesture. There it is there. And I come back out of it, just flowing that off just a bit. And I blunt that off. First thing I'm going to do is come right back and pick up that center line. I'm thinking right away, what is that shape doing? Is this round or flat? Well, in this case, it's going to be round. I'm going to take the same variation of theme there and just kind of roll that in very, very lightly here and take that and break it back here, like so, and then bring it up front and just do that. Just change it. Look at 2 lines changing entire personality. Oops, there's a nice little form change there. Then we'll work with it. Get that down. Notice I said whoops, and I think that's a good thing. That's not a matter of being negative with it. But again, look at this. You come back out of here, the lower piece, definite, maybe it's a color change. So just texture it in there. And back up on top. Maybe that becomes a little bit of a a lighting system of some sort. It's done there. That all set. Now back into this. What is that going to do? Let's go back in and just pick up an end cap in this thing. And there it is. Let's let that come through. Again, same process, put a little bit of surface to it. Now back up on top, into the radius, back into that stem, into that. Let's put a little bit of tone on this. And again, the real key here is come back underneath here and just generate that shape through. A little bit of shadow in this, and that tells me there's a recess in there. Very simple. I mean, when I work with marker, it's almost like a wet pencil. I just don't kind of get into a situation where you have to fill it all in, for example. And again, the neat thing about that is maybe this area here is a molded insert piece, color change. And that's as simple as that. A little bit of reflection down through here. Maybe there's an element here, an element there, there, and there. And let's kind of sharpen the stick a little bit. A little bit of nomenclature in this thing. There we are. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. You could do some neat stuff too with this. If that's a color change, maybe there's a little accent stripe that kind of comes in and follows it through. A little more cosmetic to it. I mean, all of a sudden you're taking a very almost, but I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow, a very basic, simple, elementary shape and giving it real life. And I think that's what sketching to me is all about. To me, drawing and sketching is bringing our ideas to life. I mean, giving it spirit. And if it doesn't have that, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to bother with it. I just really like to put a lot of spirit into things and then really put a lot of emotion into it. I mean, I've just long been very convinced of the fact that we struggle because we don't get involved in it. We're outside the envelope. We need to get in it. And all of a sudden, once you're inside the thing, and it just takes on a whole different life. It feeds back to you, kind of a spirit that really makes a lot of sense. So let's keep going here. Let's go back in through this guy. A little bit of centerline work here. Bring a little radius up on the end here. Let's kind of take that right around the bend. Let's take this on through. Same process. A little bit of mix. Take some of the roughness off the lead. Back into color. Change the blade just a bit and just take that and run it right across the top. You've got an instant little insert piece. How cool is that? There it is. Look how you rendered that whole form. Very simple. Just putting it all together. Now let's go back and pick the tail end of this thing up just a bit here. Let's take this on through. Let's take that same drive line through here. Into spherical. Now come up to the top of this thing with a little bit of definition. Notice it goes from that into round. So there's my center line here. Let's put that in boldly. It's going to come with the top. And again to roll underneath. Over the top, roll underneath. In here, maybe a bit of a different grip. Very scratchy, but nonetheless, I mean, look at that form. Hopefully it just came together for us there. A little bit of beef in here. Let's just drop that out just a bit more. And one more pass with just a little bit more tone to this thing. And we have it. A little bolder. A little bolder. And then this might be an insert piece, so let's kind of tone that in to break the shape up just a bit more and really boldly kind of separate that guy. So there you are. I mean, look at, again, understanding things, for example, and I'm going to say this very carefully because I certainly don't understand it. I'm working with it every day and trying to understand it. But the more we begin to understand what shape, I've always said this from the drawing point of view, and I teach this from the point of view of my lectures and workshops, and that is simply this: line is to surface is to form. So when you lay down a line, that'll indicate a surface, which will indicate the final form. I think that's what we're looking at here today with this whole idea, this whole concept together of putting together what are basic form sketches. Just looking at basic forms and putting them all together in harmony to create a product or an element. And so let's go back and just maybe one last little thumbnail sketch here. Let's do this. Come back out of this guy. Maybe this, a bit of a different theme here. This little aperture here and do something a little different for us. Let's do this. I want to convey to the viewer there's a grip system here that's a little bit different. So maybe I'll just take that darker marker and ink this in just a bit and take that same shape and come right through this thing and just knock that right out. And by the same token, give it a little bit of composition. Take that line through, bring it up, bring it over, drop it in, and just pick up a little bit more of that little form right there. So there's a little rectangular shape here. It's going to help to highlight that sketch above it. Composition work here. Surface to work there in the upper of that guy. And again, underneath. Make it a little more fluid. And again, a little bit of tone change underneath it, and we're on our way. One or two lines and you're home. It might be wise to just take a little bit of a different step. Let's just drop this down just a bit. A little bolder. And last but not least, a little bit of something here to kind of give a little bit of frame of reference. And that becomes the on-off button or switch right there. There it is. I mean, you know how simple the little form is. It's just a nice little keyhole piece that does. Got to run, Doc. Hey, good to see you, Chip. Thanks very much for joining on board here today. Really appreciate it, Chip. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you and further some additional streams here. Let's kind of now that we're done, there were just these little forms there. Let's go ahead and put together just a little frame of reference here. Put some composition together. Switch that into that, and bring it over. Bring this on over. And for what it's worth, There it is. And let's do this then. Let's just kind of get this thing some real punch. Let's do this. A little bit of shadow definition in this guy. Turn this upside down for a bit here. Round this shape just a bit. Just going to clean that up a touch. And there it is, gang. There's a little study again, wrapping it all up, putting some finishing touches on it. And I hope this has been really helpful to you as much as I've enjoyed putting this thing together. Let's kind of get this cleared up a little bit here, and we're just going to walk you through where we started and where we are going to end up here. And we're just going to show you the anthology of the sketch, so the history hereof. We started with this series here. Went down the line with sketch number 1, just putting together a whole process of just simple forms, generating shape, putting some systems together. And I think that, again, in summary, for all these sketches, it's getting into the idea of letting the shape speak back to you. Let the line work begin to tell you or telegraph where you want to take this material and go from there. So each sketch is just building through the shapes, not being very specific, being very lucid, being extremely fluid from step to step. There was plate 1 that worked out pretty nicely, and just putting together simple shapes and a little bit of color to it, kind of blending it in with a marker and a pencil. Same thing with this series, just getting a little bit of perspective. Again, this is one, I think all of them are very critical, but I think the one that was, all of them are dealing with the fact that you kind of work with the center line and build out of that center line from there, and begin to get the proper proportion, the right character, the right detailing work, etc. Even though you're very lucid, you're still thinking in terms of actually 10 steps ahead. It's going to be this, this, and this, and this. But all the while, the most important part of this whole stream is this: do not try to predict it. Let the sketch talk back to you. Don't try to direct it. Let it direct you, and it takes you into areas that you'll just, the lucidity and the imagination changes. The newness and the freshness becomes much more alive. So that's that second sketch we did. Then we finished up the plate with this last one. Then it's a nice little series of thumbnail sketches on just ideations. Again, same process about no matter what you're doing, lay down a line, let it speak, begin to build on that line, find that center line and build off of that, and all of a sudden everything just comes alive. It makes a huge difference. So Demetrius, are you still there? Hopefully that has been of some help to you, and I do hope that in our conversation, when I got your email, that you went back out and took a look at some of those that masterclass markers. Let me know what you think of those things. That can be kind of neat. If it works for you, terrific. But I'd just try a couple of value studies, maybe a 3 and a 4 gray, kind of keep them close together, and maybe the same thing in like a neutral blue, a light blue, and maybe a neutral blue. Just see what the process looks like and how they react. The one thing you want to be careful of, though, when you go back and look at those things, look at the xylene content. If there's a lot of xylene in it, that means when you open them up, it's going to be very susceptible to air. They'll dry out very quickly. So, and if they have a refill system, that's even better. So hopefully it work out for you here. That's great. Excellent stuff here, Demetrius. Much appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And I'll close with this. Please take a moment. Demetrius, if you have things that you want me to work on or help you with, drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. That's my email address. Be more than happy to work with you on certain things we want to look at here on the stream systems every Tuesday and Thursday. And secondly, please take a look at my website, drcontrast.com. Some new things are coming. We're going to add to it. We're going to start doing some new recording work. That's going to be added to it as well. So I'm still looking at the possibility of enveloping and changing this thing as we go. And I'm not going to keep it static. I'm going to keep it very fluid, very transitory, and keep it up to date as best we can, especially with the apparel line coming and new lesson plans coming together. I think I'm going to plan on, hopefully by the end of the month, first week actually, next week, doing a whole series. Yes, I'll still be doing the same Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's right, Demetrius. But I also want to add to it, maybe midweek or mid-month, I'm going to start looking at doing a whole series, a whole new lecture series, or a whole video series on 5 to 10 minute, 15-minute maximum little exercises on how to develop a perspective, 1 and 2 point, how to develop a light source, much more succinct. Get those into the website and get them for purchase for individuals to work with and to help them along the way. So again, please visit Jim at drcontrast.com, my website. Take a look at it, see what you think as far as lesson plans are concerned. I hope they have some help to you. And again, if you have any questions about what you'd like me to do, again, drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com and we can work from there. I wish you all the very best. Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday. And I always remember to really finish with this, because I think it's really critical. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. We'll see you Thursday at 2. Thank you. Bye-bye.